Wake up, everybody. False flags incoming. Welcome to Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And coming up on today's show, we are covering the latest of this drone flap. What in the world is going on? You have members of Congress saying, yes, definitely from China or Iran. These are foreign adversaries. The Pentagon saying not so fast, not even close. These are not even from this planet. What in the world is going on? We're going to look at that. Also, Congressman Thomas Massie is going to be here in moments to talk about the latest CIA moves in Syria, all in an effort really to undermine President Trump before he takes office on January 20th.
I feel like this was a test on whether or not you can see the matrix. Like when you heard Iran, drones, mothership, were you like, ha 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 ha, or you're like, oh, tell me more about that, right?
It's funny because immediately when we saw they said Iran, I laughed out loud. I said, of course that's the message they're going to try to send. It's Iran, of course.
Let us know if you saw through that matrix or not. I hope you are someone who can see. Yeah, are you red-pilled? Of course you are, because you're here.
Exactly.
Like how do you on one side say that like it's got to be around with this super advanced technology, and they're still like 2 years away from nukes or months away from nukes. Like they don't have nukes yet, but they have this advanced technology. I don't buy it.
They have motherships, really, that we don't know. Okay, sure. Okay.
Exactly that. All right, we're also going to talk about, oh my gosh, shake up at the FBI, and it's about time. We're going to talk about how the State Department is closing down their misinformation and censorship arm, which is dystopic, has been controlling us and also paying the mainstream media to perpetuate disinformation. And you know what? I'm excited about that. That feels like Christmas. I am so glad to see that happening.
Also, we're going to talk about Guatemala today because we probably stirred up quite a hornet's nest with our reporting on what has been going on with Antony Blinken, the State Department, going after the Guatemalan government for starting to investigate the massive child trafficking operation that runs into the United States. We're going to speak to the Secretary General of Guatemala today on the show because they went after and are in deep trouble now trying to go after and expose what Secretary Blinken and the Department of Homeland Security under Alejandro Mayorkas are doing. Really interesting story we'll bring you today on the show.
Yes, it's wild. But before we get into that, and again, we're going to have Representative Thomas Massie on the show in just a few minutes talking about what's happening in Syria and how the mainstream media is ignoring how dangerous this is to Christians, how we are somehow celebrating Al-Qaeda all of a sudden. How'd that happen? If you feel whiplash from it, you're not alone. And there are congressional representatives who are willing to discuss this and look through it. But first, we want to remind you that Redacted is brought to you by Ramp. Ramp is a business software that can help you control your spending, figure out which employees are spending what, get better analytics, make sure that you have your books closed at the end of the month so you can look forward and not backwards. And in fact, Ramp is the corporate card and spend management software designed to help you save time and put money back in your pocket. It gives your finance teams unprecedented control and insight into company spend, whether you're able to issue cards to every employee. You can also have limits and restrictions, automate expense reporting. Just stop wasting time with this, with data entry little by little. You have it at your fingertips so that you can control your spending and make sure that you're focused on profit and growth instead of write-offs. I know those write-offs are really important. And in fact, you need to know that because the calendar year is about to close. If you don't know what your taxable expenses have been, well, then how are you going to make sure that you lower your taxes before the end of the year? So look into Ramp right now. You can go to ramp.com/redacted and you'll get $250 when you join. One more time, that's just for our listeners. Get $250 when you join by heading over to ramp.com/redacted. Again, I want to remind you that the cards are issued by Sutton Bank, member of the FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. That's ramp.com/redacted.
Well, overnight, new videos emerging across Syria of Christians and other civilians like farmers being rounded up, throwing their hands up in the air, saying, "We surrender." Then they're being tortured, shot, and killed, and in public fashion as well. It's being done by the very same people, of course, ISIS and Al-Qaeda that we fought for years, people who are on the terrorist watch list. But now suddenly they're our friends. The rebranding of ISIS and Al-Qaeda is happening in real time. Congressman Thomas Massie wrote this yesterday on X. "I've been actively opposed to the U.S. policy, the Obama, Clinton, Kerry, Biden policy of destabilizing the government of Syria for as long as I've been in Congress. Please pray for the Syrian Christians who have survived our meddling up to this point." And that's exactly what it is: meddling, destabilizing, and destroying what was once one of the most peaceful countries in the world. Congressman Thomas Massie joins us from Capitol Hill today. Congressman, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Clayton. Yeah, I'm worried about the people there. And as you well point out, it's a terrorist organization. And I'm not just pulling that out of a hat or making that up. They're designated as a terrorist organization by our own government. The U.S. government designates the group that's now in control of Syria as a terrorist organization. And they evolved from Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, and they claim to have severed ties with them, but we still designate them as terrorists. So you have a lot of people who are celebrating. I think it's the Schadenfreude of Russia being embarrassed here, or Iran being embarrassed, because in this proxy civil war, Russia and Iran was on one side and the U.S. was on the other. Now, we were aligned with the terrorists, ironically, and they were aligned with the dictator. There are no winners in this overthrow of the government, in my opinion. Yeah, the trains may run on time. They keep the electricity on, but I think it's bad news for Christians and other minorities there. Assad, nobody says that he's the paragon of virtue, but he did keep the Christians from being persecuted while he was in power. Hundreds of thousands have fled, are in exile, and the ones who remained are in greater peril now, as you point out from the videos, than they were just a week ago. And let's talk about the timing of this. Remember, Tulsi Gabbard was in Congress, and she and I collaborated on a lot of these efforts to stop our meddling, the U.S. meddling in Syria. And now she's been named as the head of DNI. Well, I think that was the signal to the deep state to go in for the kill and get this over with, because Trump and some of his nominees, like Tulsi Gabbard, are signaling that we are not going to carry on the policies of Obama and the deep state.
So that's why I've been thinking that we've been talking about that on our show, that it seemed the timing of all of this just seems incredibly fishy. So it is your assessment that this was really an effort here before Trump gets into office to go in and basically put in place this sort of deep state CIA plan in Syria. It's clear as day to you, it seems.
It's clear as day to me. And, whether it was led by the United States or whether we just encouraged it, definitely the timing is not a mistake. When you find a turtle on a fence post, it didn't get there by accident. So, for instance, some of the stronger powers that be, like Israel, they used their military forces to bomb the dozens of jets and helicopters in Syria. Basically, what these terrorists couldn't do, other people in the Middle East hurry up and did here in this last week to make sure that Assad didn't have the typical resources that a government would have to respond to these threats.
You bring up a great point about Assad. You can love him or hate him. He can have your opinions about him. We've covered extensively, though, the cover-up from the Obama administration and the fake chemical attack in Duma,
yes,
which has now been widely debunked. The white helmets, of course. You can look deeply into it if you want. We don't have time today to talk all about that, but that's been widely debunked. And it is amazing when you saw all of these forces, these rebel freedom fighters now taking over Damascus and Aleppo and pouring in. It's as if, I saw a post about this yesterday by former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter, who said, it's almost as if we don't care about the non-existent chemical weapons there because they've just taken over whatever was there, whatever sort of stockpiles were there. There's no mention of any of it from the Biden administration that we're now worried about all of Assad's chemical weapons. It's almost as if he says that we knew they didn't exist all along. It was a phony story. It was a fake story. And you have evidence now of Al-Qaeda and ISIS rebranded taking over this area. And we don't say a word about all of Assad's chemical weapons.
That is a great point that Scott makes. Look, I debunked this stuff in real time, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2019, when they were basically making up these fake chemical attacks. I went on CNN and spoke truth to power. I'm like, look, why would Assad use chemical weapons to entice us into this war? And the reality is he wouldn't have done it. There's no logical sense in doing it. Yet they used opportunities that were either amplified, exaggerated, or false flag created. And they did this in like 2016. And I was calling it out. I was going on TV and saying, this doesn't make sense. This is propaganda. And I was telling the propagandists that they were propaganda. They didn't like it. They didn't invite me back on.
No, and now you're seeing the rebranding happening in real time, Congressman, of, whatever you want to call them, HTS, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, whatever the name change, the ideology, Al-Nusra, the ideology remains the same, right? Chanting in the street about killing Christians and Jews and so forth. And now you see the Biden administration rebranding them. And yesterday, the Washington Post published a story saying that, in fact, there's real debate inside the Biden administration right now whether or not to remove them from the terrorist watch list and remove the $10 million bounty on the head of their leader, Jelani. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they didn't go out and hire an army. These are basically militias with an ideology. They're motivated by an ideology. And when they said they severed their ties with Al-Qaeda, which is where they came from in 2016 or whenever, they couldn't sever their ties with the ideology because their fighters are motivated by religious ideology, and they're the same fighters. They didn't go out and hire a new set of militia. And so I'm not buying it myself that they are somehow now separate and they've extinguished that radical ideology.
From a congressional perspective, sir, you've been really one of the few voices here speaking out against our involvement in Syria. I know Congressman Matt Gaetz as well. That got voted down. It's like you're fighting an uphill battle against these globalists and these warmongers, the military-industrial complex that wants us involved there. I know the Biden administration has already said we're going to be sending weapons. We're going to do what we can to help these freedom fighters. I love that we call them freedom fighters and rebels. What are you going to do in Congress? What are you able to do in Congress to try to stop any sort of further meddling in this country and maybe try to help these people who are being slaughtered, these Christians and otherwise?
Well, look, a lot of this is up to Trump's CIA director and State Department. And that's because we have waged a secret war, a secret support for these rebels, according to New York Times. I always have to say that because I may be in possession of information I can't tell you. But if the New York Times tells you that we spent, starting in 2013, $1 billion in Syria in covert operations, then maybe the New York Times knows something. When Pompeo came in under Trump, he did say that he was going to reverse that policy of the secret Civil War support, the secret, not secret support that we were providing. What can I do in Congress? I can offer amendments, for instance, to try to defund these things. We're going to pass an NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, here in the next week that ironically has written into the base text support for both sides of this war. And it's obsolete already. The language of this thing is obsolete. It's like you said, who owns the chemical weapons now? The terrorists control Syria. Let's put air quotes around the chemical weapons. The chemical weapons that the propagandists claimed that Assad was using. Who owns those? The same question you could apply to this National Defense Authorization Act that Congress is going to pass. Who are we giving the money to now that one side has prevailed? When the bill says we're going to give money to both sides.
I remember that famous Los Angeles Times headline from like 10 years ago that says the Pentagon is basically fighting the CIA in Syria. We're funding the Pentagon side. We're funding the CIA side. Elon Musk retweeted that the other day. Of course, that's an old headline, but it's the truth. And do you think that the incoming Trump administration and whoever is going to be running the deep state CIA will have an appetite to walk away from these things and to put an end to it? Do you think Trump is kind of fully versed on this like you are?
Well, I think if Tulsi Gabbard gets confirmed, Director of National Intelligence, he's going to be fully informed on this. She doesn't pull punches. She's not going to hide stuff from him. And they're not allowed legally to hide stuff from her. Now, of course, they're going to try to, but that's why it's so important that she gets confirmed. I don't want to go through the list, get myself in trouble here and say which of the nominations I think are great and which are not so great. But Tulsi is great. We got to make sure people like her and RFK Jr. get their confirmations and are in there, rubbing elbows with the other folks who are in there, because there's going to be competition in Trump's administration. Look, we've got congressional leaders here. I say they've got the meat hooks already in them. The deep state has their meat hooks in our congressional leaders, and they're not going to change. At some point, there is going to be a sort of a come to Jesus moment, I think, in the Trump administration. Right now, it's all kumbaya. You've got our leaders here in Congress saying, oh, we're going to support Trump. But the problem is they're puppets of globalists and lobbyists for the military-industrial complex. And at some point, they're going to have to resolve their obligations to the military-industrial complex and their obligations to the mandate that Trump has, which is to get us out of all these stupid, meddling affairs all over the globe. And that's going to be interesting. When I see that conflict getting glossed over, and for instance, Trump's agenda, which is the American agenda, they put us, and I told President Trump, you've got 6 months to basically operate or capitalize on the mandate that you have. And once we go 6 months into this administration, it's just going to tie him up like a boxer that hugs the other boxer and keep him from getting things done. They'll try to start some other scandal with his administration, with people in his administration. They'll start trying to cancel people like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. That's already begun. So, what is my role? My role is I've got a front row seat to some of these arguments and some of the cover-ups. And, I'll come on your show and speak truth to power when I see it.
Well, we would love that. And you'd have a platform here anytime, Congressman, because we hold you in very high regard as one of the few voices of truth on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for what you're doing and holding truth to power and keeping them honest up there. And we will be watching it closely. Congressman, I know you've got to run and you've got a busy day there on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Clayton. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Congressman. Appreciate it. Great to have him on, as always.
And I agree with him that the Trump administration has about 6 months to strike while the iron's hot. And our wish list is big, right? We want a drained swamp. We want peace negotiations and global conflicts. We want the end to foreign aid. And so, oh my gosh, I am anxious about it.
A lot of people in the chat saying, bless you, Thomas Massey. Kenzie says, I trust Massey more than any other U.S. politician. Me too. Yeah. I honestly, really at the top of the list. So
him and the Pauls, my favorites.
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman. It was something in the water in Kentucky. It raises honest, truthful members of Congress. So thank you, Congressman. We appreciate it. All right. We've got more news coming up here on the show. We are going to look deeply at why, what exactly is happening right now inside the Beltway, because it's very interesting that Christopher Wray just announced his resignation from the FBI one day after an inspector general report comes out saying that they have been in fact spying on Kash Patel. He wants to get out of there as quickly as he can. We'll look at that and so many other big news stories coming up here in a moment. But first,
we want to tell you about our show sponsor, which is CrowdHealth. Now, CrowdHealth is not only our sponsor, but we are members of CrowdHealth and have been since before they sponsored Redacted, because we also believe in disrupting the health insurance industry. We don't want to see anybody hurt. We don't agree with this conversation about disrupting healthcare. We disrupt healthcare by just going elsewhere. We put our dollars somewhere else. CrowdHealth is a crowd-funded health plan. It's not insurance. It's a crowd fund where you can pull from it as you need to and get better prices for paying out of pocket. Now, how it works is you join, you pay a monthly premium, and then you choose to fund other people's needs. And they have a really high success rate of funding things such as pregnancy, injury, things that you cannot anticipate, state. And then just regular care. It's for healthy people. It's not for sick people. You don't fund sickness. You instead help people fund their health care. And I could talk a blue streak about it. I'm not going to. I'm just going to ask you to go to join CrowdHealth.com, put in the code redacted, and you can just get a $99 trial. So that means, you don't have to pay too much out of pocket to see how it works. Gives you peace of mind that it actually works. And I remind you that all 5 of the Morris family, this is our main health plan. And it's not insurance. It is paying for health care. So give it a try. Go to joincrowdhealth.com. This is the way, you guys. This is the way you disrupt the healthcare industry. Not through violence. We can scream at Congress. We can scream about Luigi Mangione. You can do all kinds of things like that. It's not going to change. If a CEO of a healthcare industry gets hurt, there's more. That's a spider. It's going to keep going. Disrupt instead of protest. That's what I say. So go on over to joincrowdhealth.com.
And I think that's capitalism at its finest, by the way.
Yeah.
Like if you understand capitalism, you understand this is a fabulous way to disrupt it. And I think this is, we're huge fans of it. Anyway, that's how our family is involved.
And let me just give you a little bit about how much we save. So if we were to go to the Obamacare website, we pay about $2,500 a month for our family of 5 for healthcare. With CrowdHealth, we pay about $500 per month. And then when we need something else, it doesn't, we can pay out of pocket for things, and it doesn't really bother me that much to pay for dental cleanings or chiropractic and things like that, because I'm still saving and I'm not subsidizing other people's addictions to drugs and bad diets.
Exactly. Yes, you're not subsidizing Anyway, we can go on and on about it. Okay, let's talk about the news, though. FBI Director Christopher Wray has announced his resignation effective at the end of President Joe Biden's term in January. Can you just leave now, please? Can you just go? This decision comes in the wake of President-elect Trump's, of course, choice of Kash Patel, his appointment as the new head of the Bureau.
Which means he's already been fired as of January 20th. He's just saying, it's my choice.
Yeah. My choice. So he knew he was on his way out anyway. Anyway, Christopher Wray began his 10-year term back in 2017 after being nominated by Trump. He's faced all sorts of increased scrutiny over the past couple of years in Republican circles, notably Senator Chuck Grassley, of course. Grassley went after him, wrote an 11-page letter slamming Wray, asking him to step down, get out. He specifically slammed him for his mismanagement and a failure to assert control in the FBI. These rogue agents, these rogue bureaus in different departments, different field offices that were specifically, targeting Americans, going Catholic prayer meetings, going after Catholics, spying on Catholics. Grassley expressed that these issues had eroded his confidence in Wray's leadership. Wray also led his bureau to go after Americans. And in the wake of January 6th, Wray famously declared that white supremacy was one of the greatest threats to the United States national security. Remember this?
I would certainly say, as I think I've said consistently in the past, that racially motivated violent extremism, specifically of the sort that advocates for the superiority of the white race, is a persistent, evolving threat. It's the biggest chunk of our racially motivated violent extremism cases for sure. And racially motivated violent extremism is the biggest chunk of our domestic terrorism portfolio, if you will, overall. I will also say that the same group of people we're talking about have been responsible for the most lethal attacks over the last, say, decade.
Yeah, so that's the biggest threat to the United States right now, not the tens of millions of illegal immigrants that are in the United States, violent criminals, rapists, murderers, and otherwise, but it's white supremacists. Okay. Anyway, he protected also the Crossfire Hurricane members who faked the Russiagate investigation, colluded with the press, colluded with the New York Times and the Washington Post and other members of the media. When, of course, Kash Patel, Devin Nunes, congressman, tried to get information about what they'd done to spy on Trump and the administration and make up the Russia hoax. hoax, Wray refused to hand over documents, even after they'd seen the memo from Operation Medusa, and they confirmed that everything in it was correct. His department leaked fake stories to the press, and he let it happen. He never got to the bottom of it. By the way, when the FBI, in fact, gave over text messages and documents of Peter Strzok and others at the FBI, they gave over these text messages. They basically handed them like trash bags full of these messages in order to like, here, you go and try to root through all these text messages. We're not going to organize it for you. Your team has to try to figure out and piece all of this stuff together, all of our corruption inside the FBI.
Meaning they had this damning evidence that inside their department there was collusion with an agenda to take down President Trump because of people's personal politics, and it is not supposed to work that way. They had it, and they didn't even bother to act upon it.
Yeah.
A sitting president. They knew this during the Trump administration and decided to let those wheels continue to turn and see where it ended up.
Whistleblowers say that that Christopher Wray lied under oath to Congress, that no FBI agents were present during the January 6th riots. We all know that is a total lie. As we heard last week, under his watch, the FBI violated the civil rights of many January 6th defendants on that day. We also learned that when we spoke to Stephen Friend, we learned it from his congressional testimony as well, that yes, there were feds there on January 6th, multiple federal agents, but no, there was nobody there. Sure, I got a bridge to sell you. Now it's up to Kash Patel, the nominee, who's poised to proceed or succeed Wray, and he's recognized to his loyalty to Trump. Can he clean up this department? Of course, we had Kyle Seraphin on as a former FBI whistleblower. Worked at the FBI, was unceremoniously kicked out when he basically called out their corruption at the FBI. It's a tall order. He's got a lot of cleaning up to do. But Christopher Wray will be there through Christmas, so you can.
He was asked in Washington just a few minutes ago about the resignation of Christopher Wray, and he says, "Well, I just hope for a smooth transition." Now, if you read any of the reporting about Operation Medusa and how Kash Patel was one of the ones to pull the thread about the Russiagate hoax, he is not one of those who says, "Oh, everything's corrupt in here. Screw this place." He's in fact the exact opposite. He loves the FBI, and he says it's not supposed to be tainted like this. We are not supposed to be grinding axes of our own personal preferences here. You cannot have biases. You cannot do it this way. He said he will do it differently. I think that's what most of us are pretty excited about. So this is the end of an era. All right, the New York Post says that Democrats are in an ethical free fall. They say this about the leak about the congressional report of Matt Gaetz. Democrats leaked details of the report on Florida Representative Matt Gaetz to the press. Are you surprised? You shouldn't be. The press is an arm of the Democratic state, which is an arm of the deep state. Easy to prove. Right. I don't think if I need to prove that to you, I don't know what to do. The woman you're looking at right here, her name's Susan Wild. She's a Pennsylvania representative, but not for long because she lost her election this November. But she leaked details of this report from the House Ethics Committee. So do you see the irony there? She's on the Ethics Committee and she leaked the Ethics Committee to the press, which is against their own internal ethics. Okay, because she's outgoing Pennsylvania representative, she's just torching the place on her way out. Now, the House had compiled a report on Gaetz that was related to his accusation of sexual relationships with minors. He was never charged from the FBI because the main witness to the accusations was not a credible person because he himself had been sleeping with the same 17-year-old that he was accusing Matt Gaetz of. Also, he had falsely accused a political opponent in the past. So the FBI said, well, we can't really trust this guy. And Gaetz was never charged with anything, but the House decided that wasn't good enough for them because they need to tear down anyone in the peripheral vision of Donald Trump. And so they put together their own report, and the information that Wild leaked was not necessarily damning to Gaetz, or you would know that by now because the press is starving for it. They want so badly to be able to pin it on this dude. She was not able to present anything damning, but she presented how the House ethics had come to this. It just basically inside baseball is what my dad would say. Why would she do this? Obviously to keep the anti-Trump rhetoric high. She showed she no-showed for the House ethics meetings, and now she says, kind of done with it. I saw what I needed to see. I'm not going to go there. The problem is that everywhere we look, we see Democrats in this ethical freefall. The Hunter Biden pardon, he gets away with crimes that we all know that he did, right? Because he's associated with Democrats. Just this week, we exposed the Democrats for pressuring the government of Guatemala to shut down an investigation of human trafficking, interfering in a foreign government for how that research might reflect on the Democrats. They censor speech. They condemn Daniel Penny, but then exalt Luigi Mangione. They get away with all of this, and all we can do is vote them out, which thankfully we have done because we still have that power. But is that enough? Or is it time to see Democrats punished for all these ethical violations? What do you think?
I think it's about time. We'll see how much, though. Trump was asked quite a bit about this the other day. Like, are you going to go after all these politicians in the past? And he's like, I want to have basically, I want winning going forward to be the way that we sort of punish these people. So it'll be interesting to see how much punishment comes from the Trump administration and the DOJ against some of these people. But
right, and the media is like, oh, they're going to punish us, and I'm like, because you did bad things.
Right.
Yeah. So stop doing bad things.
Right, especially when you look at the collusion between like the New York Times and the Washington Post as it relates to the Russia hoax. Like these weren't or even the McClatchy newspapers and other. These weren't people. Devin Nunes filed a lawsuit against them, right, for defamation. So these weren't people just sort of journalists like doing their job. They were colluding with these individuals.
These were journalists purposely not doing their jobs and just publishing the things that fit their political agenda. Yeah, and again, it's not illegal, but and so I don't want to see the press punished in the way that Julian Assange was punished for publishing something that they didn't want us to see. But yeah, the press they're circling the drain in their own way, deservedly so, right? But the people, yes, I do want to see people punished for, let's punish someone who violated the laws of the ethics committee. Why do we have the ethics committee if people in there are not going to behave ethically? Sanctions, some kind of punishment. How about that?
All right, someone in the chat just said, did I miss the UFO discussion? No, we're about to do that in just a second here. But first, take a look at this. This is the ledger, okay? In my hands, this tiny little, like almost like credit card size thing here in my hand. Yeah, well, I'm trying to get it to focus there. But anyway, we have photos of it. I always try to do that, and I apologize, Philip. Anyway, if you're looking to take control of your finances and online security, Ledger is the solution you need. It's trusted by 7 million users, securing 20% of the world's digital assets. If you've got cryptocurrency, you've got Bitcoin, Ledger is the undisputed leader in hardware wallets to protect yourself. Ledger's new hardware wallets are called the Ledger Stacks, the Ledger Flex. The little one here I was showing you is the Ledger Flex. It's the most secure, user-friendly way to manage your digital assets. With their intuitive touchscreens, comprehensive ecosystem of products and services, Ledger makes digital ownership accessible to everyone. I love it. It's great to be able to store this, not have to store this like on a public exchange. I personally use it and love being able to store my cryptocurrency on my Ledger offline, away from hackers and scammers and thieves. Keep it secure. Buy your Ledger device right now. Just go to ledger.com to secure your digital future before it's too late. You can go to shop.ledger.com/redacted. It's right there on your screen. All right, let's talk about UFOs and drones, because now apparently it's Iran. It's Iran's fault. Yes, they've got a mothership that is now sending out all of these drones. I mean, I know it sounds like a tabloid thing. No, this is actually from members of Congress. It does, right? We're simply reporting what Congress is telling us right now. Right now, I'm telling you this. Okay, Congressman tells Fox News that a credible source has revealed that New Jersey drones and the ones they were seeing all over up and down the East Coast were launched from our eastern seaboard. And guess what? They're coming from Iran, he says. Watch.
Well, here's the real deal, Harris. I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple things. First of all,
hold on. I like what Barry says in our chat. What utter BS.
Yeah.
Yes, Barry. Couple of things.
I love the part when it says it wasn't our government. They would have told us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because our government's so truthful. Our government would have told us.
They're so up and up.
I want to see Iran in either like a giant hovercraft like mothership or like a ship, an actual like on the ocean ship. I want to see them leave Iran, sail towards the U.S. and get anywhere near our coast without being detected. Like. And intercepted by the Navy or the Coast Guard.
We didn't know. That was new information.
So right off the coast, just outside of Coney Island, if you look with your binoculars, you'll see Iran's mothership sitting there with tens of thousands of drones the size of SUVs that are flying above the United States. They're doing like maneuvers that we've never seen before in modern physics, doing 90-degree turns in split seconds, Mach 12 in no time at all. Going into the ocean, by the way, going all the way into the ocean and then coming out of the ocean again. But it's all Iran. Go ahead, Philip.
Oh, I was just gonna say maybe they painted their ships blue and nobody's ever thought of that, and we just can't see them.
Right.
They're like our radar's hitting something, but we can't see what it is.
So
I just can't get over keeping a straight face when it says it's clearly not our government. They would have let us know. Like, as the news anchor, how do you not just go, right. That's so funny. Like, okay.
Yeah, like Harris is sitting there. She's like, the United States government tells us everything.
Up,
right?
Sure.
Like all the experiments on American soldiers during the Cold War and dropping nuclear weapons and seeing what the radiation fallout would be to those people. Like, our government's always been upfront about everything, just like our government is totally open and honest with how the CIA was involved in killing John F. Kennedy. They've been so forthright with everything. I can't even believe that congressman said it with a straight face from New Jersey.
Or that she let him.
Yeah. But so he says, they'd be forthright. But again, the FBI yesterday said, we don't know anything about them. We don't know anything about them. But by the way, we've set up a tip line, like an 800 number if you want to call. Watch.
We do not attribute that to an individual or a group yet. We're investigating, but I don't have an answer of who's responsible for that, of one or more people that are responsible for those drone flights.
Yeah, we don't even know, but we did set up a tip line, so we have no idea. But now this congressman says it's Iran, sure. So that's what the congressman said, and other congressmen are now sort of echoing those sentiments. But the Pentagon, just about an hour ago, came out and said, no, that's total BS. In fact, these things aren't from Iran. These aren't from China. These aren't from the United States. Basically, she's admitting these are not from Earth. Watch, from the Pentagon.
Jen. Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership.
Okay, so that's a no then.
So no, that's it. There's no mothership off the coast of the United States from the Pentagon. Although Republican from New Jersey saying that yes, there is, and these are Iranian drones. So we better go and attack Iran right now. We better nuke Iran because before President Trump gets in office, this is what we need to do. So what the hell is happening? I asked Dr. Michael Salla, who has amazing sources on this. He says, I think that they are deep state controlled, using select aerospace companies to build them with some advanced tech from classified programs so they evade conventional defense technologies. So not from the U.S. military, not from Iran, not from Russia, not from China, but from our own deep state using select aerospace companies, which I think probably a lot of us would agree that that's probably exactly what's going on here. All of these black book programs that we don't know anything about is exactly what's happening here. And yesterday, Representative Smith described 50 drones just coming right in off the ocean, out of the water. And the FBI, they don't know where these are coming from, but they're coming out of the water as well. Watch.
So last night I was on the beach in Island State Park in Ocean County with the sheriff. He has been working it every single night. He's got his own tethered drones chronicling. One of his officers 2 nights ago saw 50 drones come in off the ocean right there. So we thought maybe they'll replicate it. They didn't, but we thought it was a possibility. Last night we had a number of other people there, including a commanding officer from the Coast Guard, who said that one of their 47-foot motor lifeboats was followed by between 12 and 30 of these drones as they went through the water, followed right behind them.
Yeah. Iran. We better bomb them. It's unbelievable what's going on. I mean, this is a really stunning story. Like, why are we seeing them in this capacity with this many all up and down the East Coast of the United States right now? The timing of it is with 40 days until President Trump takes office. Like, what the hell is happening? What kind of false flag are they meant to be doing here in order to sort of drive us crazy with this? What do you think, Philip?
Well, I'm trying to remember, but remember the Chinese weather balloon that was such a big, to do? Didn't they scramble fighters for that? Like, didn't they go after that?
Apparently they did, and then they chose not to do anything once they scrambled them, right? So like, where are the helicopters? Where are the, if you've got a possible, of an unknown origin, you've got something infiltrating our airspace, going around military bases, where are the monitors? Like, at the very least, there should be helicopters flying around, something. Well, yeah, exactly. Where are the fighter jets taking these things on, shooting them down? If they're over military installations, where is the United States military in this? There was just a briefing about an hour and a half ago in New Jersey, and members of the state legislature met with Governor Murphy. They said it was an absolute joke of a meeting about an hour ago. They said, we learned absolutely nothing. They didn't tell us anything. They don't know anything. So you have governors who don't know anything right now. They can't get answers. The FBI doesn't know anything. The Pentagon says, we don't know what they are, but they're not U.S. military, and they're certainly not from a foreign adversary. So what in the hell is happening? I do know this, though. A lot of people yesterday there were all sorts of reports of people launching their own personal drones in order to go investigate these things. And they've been reporting widespread outages. Like, their drones go up in the air and they're literally turned around, or their battery appears dead and it falls out of the sky. So people are launching their own personal drones to go investigate these other drones. And they're reporting that either they're not able to launch them at all, or when they do, if they do launch, they're immediately drained of battery and they're full. Does Iran have that kind of technology? They can drain your batteries as well? I don't know. Let us know what you think about that, but we're going to continue to follow this because
wouldn't you rather hear them say we actually don't know? I mean, what is the truth? Do they know something they're not telling us, or there's this dude who's making it up as a false flag for Iran, or do they really don't know? Somebody knows something. So, like Philip says, we have the technology to at least say we see something we don't recognize, and this is what happened, but we're getting no response.
John says in our chat, John Coleman says the CIA knows, I bet. Well, there's deep state black programs that absolutely they know about what's going on here. They absolutely know. Somebody knows, right?
I mean, we have huge ass agencies that are dedicated to finding things out that we don't know. Why aren't they trying to find it? And that's what, like, to me, informs me that they absolutely do know, because they don't seem to be investigating it. They just seem to be like, just send us videos you have of it, because we don't want to go check it out ourselves. Like, they know. They have to know what it is.
Yeah, a tip line.
Tip line.
All right. Well, good news. The Global Engagement Center, that is an arm of the State Department that censors us and makes up disinformation, false flags, they're going to be shutting down. That feels like an early Christmas. This, again, is the State Department's hired gun. They censor speech. They fund full-on propaganda. Good riddance to them. Now, you might be thinking, I know this group, the GEC, Global Engagement Center. Well, you know them from the Twitter files of many other places. In March of 2023, journalist Matt Taibbi showed us how they work with the State Department in order to censor what they even call plain old opinion. They've said that. They say they censor misinformation from foreign governments, but instead they make stuff up like this. This came from the Global Engagement Center, that Russian leaked disinformation was fueling COVID alarms. No. Here's another one that they got put in print because, of course, the press is an arm of the State Department's propaganda arm, that Russian, Chinese, and Iranian disinformation, all of that was responsible for the COVID pandemic alarm. They were also the ones who were caught funding an algorithm to score media outlets by risk. Taibbi says, how does downranking the Daily Wire to help the New York Times get more ad revenue combat foreign disinformation? Well, it doesn't at all. What it does is they literally give money to press outlets that follow their agenda. They used at least 98.7 million taxpayer dollars, of which 80 million came from the Pentagon, to pay media organizations. We saw that in this report. Who got money from the Global Engagement Center? Well, it was all redacted, so we kind of have to guess. So not only were they deplatforming Twitter users, they were making up lies, and then the media organizations that print those lies were getting some money.
Now, to be clear, Redacted, not our show. Our show is named Redacted.
We've never had any money from the Global Engagement Center.
Yeah. Just to be clear, they redacted the names, but our show...
How did I say that?
You said...
we don't know which media organizations because they were redacted.
They were redacted.
They were redacted. That's a...
just to be clear.
Yeah, that's an adjective.
Yeah.
Not a proper noun like redacted, the show. Okay, so yes, we don't know who they gave money to. My wild guess, which is not so wild, I don't know, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, CNN, MSNBC, everyone who prints their lies gets a good grade and money, direct money, and then anyone who doesn't gets downranked. They're the worst. Now, recently on Joe Rogan's show, Mike Benz, and I want to say here, I had volumes of research on how utterly crappy the Global Engagement Center is, and it took me a long time to whittle it down because they're just terrible. Because I want to remind you that the State Department pushes this on us with our taxpayer dollars. Well, Mike Benz, former State Department cybersecurity expert, was on Joe Rogan recently, and he explained how they started doing this against us when originally they developed this technology to combat ISIS. This is a little under 5 minutes, but I just couldn't cut it because it's so good. We need to remember that our government is trying to control us with our own money, and this is the organization now that will shut down, so we need to collectively celebrate that the witch is dead. Watch. Hey.
God.
So the Global Engagement Center is meant to keep you from voting for your own power, full stop. It's meant to keep the power in the hands of the globalists, NATO, the World Bank, the United Nations, and the mainstream media. That's what they do under the arm of foreign disinformation. They subvert the will of the people. So why are they closing? Because they were sued by Republicans. They say they'll close within 2 weeks, which is awesome. But the bad news, I guess, is that the State Department said that they're going to move that staff and funding to other bureaus still aimed at fighting foreign disinformation. Hopefully, they don't get to do that to us anymore because they have at least lost a little bit of power. I'd like to see this happen to the National Endowment for Democracy, but at least that's one demonic organization imploded. We applaud that today.
Yeah, and Chris Wray also resigning today. That's another deep state smug smug player falling as well. So
I don't remember that Fight Club scene. I've only seen it once. All the buildings implode.
It's the very
at
end.
the end.
Yeah, it's very end.
It's
Okay.
the very end when he after he shoots himself in the face, and then he just sits there and watches, like out the window, watches all the buildings collapse. You don't remember that?
No, but I'm not going to go back and watch it. That,
We'll watch
that
it.
movie's for dudes.
Right.
We'll watch it on a date night.
No, thank you.
Yeah. All right. We've got more news to get to here. We're going to talk with the Secretary General of Guatemala. And he, of course, has been working on a massive investigation to go after all of the child trafficking operation that's been funneling all of these children out of Guatemala to the United States. Well, guess what? Secretary Blinken, the State Department, didn't like that Guatemala is about to upend this massive operation that's being run by the Biden administration and the Department of Homeland Security. So stuff is about to hit the fan. We're going to talk to the Secretary General, Angel Pineda from Guatemala in just a second. We're going to stay on this story because our children, to me, the most important story in the world, and no one seems to care at all, and we're going to continue to cover this story. But first, the October 15th deadline has passed. Are you prepared for what's coming? Do you owe back taxes? Are your tax returns still unfiled? Missed the deadline to file for an extension? Well, now that October 15th is behind us, the IRS may be ramping up enforcement. You could face wage garnishments, frozen bank accounts, or even property seizures if you haven't taken action yet. But there's still hope. Tax Network USA has helped taxpayers save over $1 billion in tax debt and has filed over 10,000 tax returns. They specialize in helping people like you reduce their tax burdens, and they can help you as well. Don't wait any longer. Visit tnusa.com/redacted or call 1-800-958-1000 for a free consultation. Their experts will walk you through a few simple questions, see how much you can save. You can act now before the IRS takes more aggressive steps. Take control today. Visit tnusa.com/redacted or call them 1-800-958-1000. Well, we are continuing to peel the onion back on Guatemala, its massive child sex trafficking operation. Yesterday on the show, documentary filmmaker Ryan Mata broke the story wide open. Antony Blinken, the State Department, in coordination with NGOs and government organizations like USAID, are caught in a regime change operation that involves blackmail, extortion, money laundering, rigged elections, and yes, child trafficking in Guatemala. Angel Pineda is a Guatemalan patriot. He's the right-hand man of the Guatemalan Attorney General. He's also the lead investigator who's uncovered this massive corruption that leads straight to the corrupt Biden administration. Of course, they are not happy with him. And Angel joins us now. Angel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Clayton. Thank you for having us here. The space is wonderful to speak about this issue.
Well, I think it's so important. And, we have a saying in the United States, oh, you've stirred up a hornet's nest. I don't know if you're familiar with that saying in Guatemala, but you guys have really stirred up quite a hornet's nest. Were you shocked to find that what you were uncovering inside of Guatemala leads all the way to the top of the Biden administration?
Yeah, it was a shocking experience and an incredible experience, because we didn't know that this was going to go as far as it's going. We only started the investigation, and we have to start to have a lot of attacks. But these attacks were already happening since 2021 because we have been here in the AG's office making some decisions that somebody in the U.S. Embassy here in Guatemala didn't like it, and somebody in the Secretary of State and the Department of State of the United States of America didn't like it also. So it has been a pattern on several cases that are in importance for them, but we didn't know that until now, and we are still starting an investigation ongoing with this investigation of trafficking children, but the attack is I don't know if it has a comparison in the world, Only with President Trump, I see that it's the same attack like our AG is having.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's very large. And of course, what you're doing is you're trying to stop the flow of these children into this large NGO-backed child trafficking operation that's been, of course, run by the United States government at the direction of the Department of Homeland Security under Alejandro Mayorkas, massively corrupt criminal, running this operation, funneling these Guatemalan children into the United States, where ostensibly they're being sold off into sex slavery and God knows what else. What was the first indication that this was happening in your investigation?
Well, I'm going to put the answer in two different phases. The first phase is when in 2020, as Guatemalans, we start to see that the migration of people, it was huge, you know. It changed the numbers of migration from 2019 to 2020. It was different. And in 2021 was more different. So our AG created a unit here to fight against illegal migration. We created that unit here and we started to work. By now, we only have received in the 4 years that it has been going on this new unit, like 1,102 cases. But when we received last April the complaint, saying in the facts on that complaint that it may happen that when people going from Central America to the United States are in the way and in the path, being victims of different crimes, we started to put an attention. You cannot put aside your eyes and say that this is not happening. Any complaint that you receive in a prosecutor office, it has to be investigated. Only the investigation is going to give you the truth. But here we say we make a different act, because as we saw that the complaint said that the people were going especially to Texas, we sent a letter to Attorney General Paxton to Texas. That only act is the one that initiate all the attack in this case per se. We receive a lot of attack in the media here in Guatemala. Some journalists that are working with the government, you know, and with the U.S. Embassy. We have seen by the way that they have been behavior that they are trying to say that this investigation is not a good investigation and maybe it's not real, you know. But we know that because of that reaction, that something is happening here. Several months ago, we started with a raid. We went to a judge, asked authorization by judicial authorization to make a raid in the Save the Children NGO, because the complaint said so. In the complaint, it was saying that another 5 NGOs can be participating in this matter. We cannot say more about the details because our law protects this kind of information, and it's more important when children is involved in investigations. Our legal system protects them more than anything. But I can say that we have already made 5 raids in 5 NGOs here in Guatemala, NGOs that are from the different countries around the world, and the complaint says that they are helping in this possible commission of crimes.
Well, it's unbelievable. So Save the Children, one of the raids that you guys carried out, Save the Children, Jill Biden is one of the board members, or formerly one of the board members of Save the Children. Save the Children also operates in Texas. So you guys sent a letter to Attorney General Ken Paxton in Texas, letting them know about this, I guess, cooperation between the NGO in Guatemala that's funneling these children into Texas. And so let me just understand this. Then journalists in the United States, because we have a corrupt media, certainly the large, you know, like the New York Times, Washington Post, the large publications work very closely with the government. So they are just mouthpieces of the government. They attacked you?
Well, we have been under attack by the journalists here in Guatemala. From the United States, people that have achieved and have communicated with us is people like you that is trying to know what is happening here in Guatemala.
Oh,
but
good.
here
Okay.
in Guatemala, yes, some journalists are saying that these investigations are not good, and they attack the institution of the prosecutor's office. You know, they start to say that we are corrupt. We are ongoing a fraud investigation of our last elections. because we receive a complaint on that matter, and they are saying now that we are anti-democratic because we are trying to take off the democracy here in Guatemala.
So the blowback from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, can you talk about the response that you've received from the U.S. State Department? There's been, he has not been happy with your investigation.
No. With some investigations, everything started in 2021 when our AG fired a person who worked here in a prosecutor's office, but used to work also with the U.S. Embassy. When she took the decision to fire this person, they started to attack this institution. They took the visa of our AGs, the visa of her husband. They took my visa off. They took the visa of the prosecutors that are in charge of the different investigations on investigations that are in importance for the U.S. Embassy here in Guatemala. We have sent a lot of letters to Washington, to the different units in the Department of State and different units in the Department of Justice, trying to understand why they took this decision, because we don't know. We know we are not criminals. We know we are not making corrupt acts. We know we are not anti-democratic persons, We are just trying to investigate because that is the function of the Ministerio Público of Guatemala. The Constitution gives us the function to investigate everything, and if you find evidence, go to the judge and get a sentence on that,
So let's talk about the children at the heart of all of this. So the United States, of course, is actively trying to funnel these children out of Guatemala. Guatemala is the largest, that is the area that provides the largest amount of children to the United States, and it's all being facilitated by the United States government. So they are actively working with these NGOs and bringing these children across the border into the United States. Hundreds of thousands of these children have now disappeared in the United States, gone. No accountability. They're not coming across the border with their parents. They're coming across the border with coyotes and other drug runners who are bringing and facilitating and bringing these children. Have you made any headway on your side in trying to stop these NGOs, these foreign NGOs, from basically invading Guatemala and stealing your children?
Well, let me tell you, we have seen now that there is a black number in this matter, because as I told you, we will receive only 1,000 complaints. When we started to talk with several friends of you from different podcasts and different media, they gave us numbers that you cannot think even about it, Now we are talking about, we are talking about more than 200,000 children from Guatemala, only from Guatemala, going to the United States. If you divide it on the 4 years, day by day, you can imagine how you can send a lot of children. Somebody is putting their eyes shut off, to this happen. We are investigating. We have to respect the due process, The investigation are going to give us the evidence to go to a judge and start to make consequences to the people who is responsible of these atrocious acts.
So you, on the one side, you're working hard to try to find out and uncover the real numbers and bring this to a judge, while at the same time, you are under attack from the United States and the U.S. State Department under the Biden administration, calling you guys corrupt, trying to undermine your investigations, essentially. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, that is, and I have to be very, very true in this. We have worked with the different agencies of the United States of America, the DEA, FBI, even the HSI, and we have been working very good. If you go to ask to the people, technical people that works with us, they're going to give you good information about this institution. But if you go to talk with Blinken and with Todd Robinson and this Mr. Nichols, they are not going to say the same. But why is that? You don't understand that. We cannot understand that. Well, we were naive. We didn't understand in that time. Right now we understand why, because something is happening here, and people also here in the state of Guatemala is helping them. and we have to
Right.
find that. We are ongoing on that.
Well, and as we've covered here on the show extensively with our reporting, it's a massive money-making operation for these NGOs that are facilitating the theft of these children into child sex slavery in the United States and other parts of the world. It is a lot of money at stake. And like I said at the beginning, Angel, you've stirred up a hornet's nest, and these people don't like to have their money taken away from them, and they certainly don't like to have, these pedophiles certainly don't like to have their children taken away from them as well. So thank you for the work that you're doing. We are watching this very closely. Thank you for being a patriot and somebody who is looking out for these children in Guatemala. Thank you so much, Angel. I know you have to run to a meeting right now, so I want to let you go, but thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
No, thank you also for giving us the space, and thank God that he's helping us also.
Yeah, God bless you, Angel. Unbelievable story. And, it's hard for me to wrap my head around. I get so frustrated because I just don't understand why there's not more coverage of all of these missing children. It just took Donald Trump one time to talk about over 300,000 missing children. And it got some press attention, but mostly no. Where are the front page stories, on the New York Times about these children and these NGOs that are facilitating the largest sex trafficking operation in the world, in the United States? Where's the Washington Post on this? Where's the Wall Street Journal? Where's Meet the Press? Where are all of the mainstream media? They ignore this story. It is absolutely disgusting what is happening. Anyway, thank you guys for being a part of our show here. We really, really appreciate it. We're live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so thank you guys for joining us. I should mention we have our store. We have a bunch of new stuff in our Redacted storefront, by the way, if you wanted to pick something up to support independent journalism and support what we do here. It's perfect for the holidays. We've got a lot of great stuff for the holidays, great mugs and hoodies. Just go to redactedstore.com. We got t-shirts and all of our new lineup of stuff. Actually, we just rolled out a whole bunch of new designs right in time for the Christmas season as well as my End the Fed t-shirt. Big fan of that. And we've got all sorts of great stuff in here, like our propaganda t-shirt and our conspiracy knower instead of conspiracy theorist t-shirts as well. So check them all out at redactedstore.com. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We'll be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Have a great night, everyone.